Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of White Oak Development, we're excited to present our proposal for Bronzeville Dream Rises, an affordable housing community designed to serve and uplift the residents of Columbus, Ohio. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our team. My name is Aiden Jubb, and I'm joined today by my fellow partners, Sam Chimini, Grayson Glasgow, and Krishna Benzi. Together, we're proud to share our vision for a development that not only provides quality housing, but also strengthens the social and economic fabric of the Bronzeville community. Located at 474 North Monroe Ave in Columbus, Ohio, Bronzeville Dream Rises is rooted in a neighborhood shaped by decades of disinvestment. At White Oak Development, we believe real change starts with something powerful, yet often overlooked: a home. A home is more than a shelter. It's where stability begins, where families grow, and where communities rise. That is why we have a clear mission, grounded in what we call the Bronzeville Dream. The Bronzeville Dream is about building a Columbus that is stronger than yesterday, a place where every resident is recognized, supported, and empowered to reach their full potential. With that, I'll now hand it over to Krishna, who will begin by giving an overview of our proposal.
Thank you, Aiden. As we continue our presentation, I'll begin by outlining our key focus areas. First, we'll take a look at the local Columbus housing market, followed by our site and location, the overall project vision, and the partnerships that make this possible. We'll then close with a financial overview that highlights how Bronzeville Dream Rises delivers both long-term affordability and community renewal for the Near East Side. The Near East Side is home to nearly 20,000 residents, with modest but steady growth since 2020, signaling stability for long-term housing investment. Around 70% of households are renters, and over a third earn less than $35,000 per year, highlighting a deep need for affordability. Meanwhile, rents have nearly doubled, putting many families at risk of displacement. With average household sizes above 3, the demand for larger, family-oriented units is especially strong, which directly shapes our project's design and target resident base. Our site is located at the former Monroe Middle School, now zoned R3, which is for single-family housing. Given the community benefits our proposal brings, we are confident in obtaining a variance for multifamily use. The location is highly walkable, surrounded by schools, transit, and key civic and cultural landmarks. At the same time, while the area offers strong community access, we're mindful of challenges like rising construction costs, crime, and the risk of displacing current residents, which is why thoughtful integration is key. Our vision for Bronzeville Dream Rises is a 4-story, 42-unit affordable housing community totaling 54,500 square feet with one-to-one parking ratio and fully compliant with ADA, fair housing, and Section 504 standards. We ensure accessibility and equity for all residents. Amenities include a 2,000 square foot Dream Lab community space, parking security to address Columbus's rising auto theft concerns, and direct access to Dreamfield Park. The site layout allows parents to relax in the lobby and lounge while keeping a clear view of their children playing outdoors. Small design choice that supports safety, convenience, and peace of mind. Having established our site and vision, Aiden will now introduce how the Dream Lab and our community partners bring this vision to life.
Thank you, Krishna. The Dream Lab is a flexible community space designed to expand access to technology, learning, and opportunity. It offers residents computer access, digital literacy training, homework assistance, and career support, all made possible through our partnership with the Columbus Literacy Council. While education and job growth are central to the Bronzeville Dream, we recognize deeper needs within the community. Franklin County faces an overall 11.3% food insecurity rate, with nearly 1 in 7 children struggling to access consistent, healthy meals. 49% of these food insecure residents are ineligible for SNAP or EBT benefits, leaving many families without essential support. In addition, Ohio ranks 44th nationally in overall health outcomes and continues to experience one of the highest adult obesity rates in the country. So to address these challenges, nutrition and wellness are core to our mission. That's why we've included an adjoining teaching kitchen in partnership with Local Matters, where residents can participate in hands-on cooking classes and nutrition education programs. Together, these initiatives make the Dream Lab not just a learning center, but a hub for empowerment, strengthening education, improving health, and supporting the area's growing technological and economic resilience. Now I'd like to highlight these key partners specifically. Focused on breaking cycles of poverty and empowering residents to achieve greater independence and opportunity, The Columbus Literacy Council provides free and low-cost reading, writing, math, and digital literacy programs for both youth and adults throughout Central Ohio. They support job seekers through computer training, resume development, and professional workshops. In addition, their digital platform, CLC Connect, serves as an expanding hub of self-paced tutorials and online learning resources, helping residents gain the skills they need to thrive in today's workforce. The Dream Lab offers Columbus Literacy Council an ideal space to deepen this impact, providing the technology, accessibility, and community connection necessary for lasting opportunity. And to meet the health needs of our community, we've partnered with Local Matters. Local Matters is dedicated to reducing hunger and expanding access to affordable, nutritious food for all residents. They help families understand where food comes from, how to prepare it, and how to make healthy, cost-effective choices. Through hands-on workshops for children, adults, and seniors across Columbus, Local Matters teaches practical cooking, budgeting, and nutrition skills that promote lifelong wellness. The Dream Lab will serve as a host location for Local Matters programs, bringing these vital lessons directly to Bronzeville Dream Rises, empowering residents to build healthier lives and a stronger, more resilient community. And with that overview, I'll hand it off to Sam and Grayson, who will walk through how we finance the project.
Thank you, Aiden. To ensure transparency about the DreamLab budget, we put together an itemized list of all the components needed for its whole operation. From computers and whiteboards to kitchen appliances, we've estimated the total cost of these items to be around $16,200, plus approximately $117 per month for internet and additional electricity, which is expected to increase by 3% each year. As with any project, variables like specific models, quantities, and vendors may change based on the final design choices, availability, and current market prices during construction. To offset some of this uncertainty, we've included a 15% contingency reserve, which adds about $2,400 to the current estimate. An accompanying cost reference sheet provides a retail price for each item, as well as corresponding vendor information, all of which were available in the Columbus market. Our unit mix showcases our commitment to meet the revitalization effort occurring throughout the Bronzeville community. With an average family size of 3, we are proposing that nearly half of our units be 2 bedrooms and about a third be 3 bedrooms, directly addressing the need for family size housing. Rents are set at 40%, 50%, and 60% of the area median income, which promotes income diversity and helps prevent displacement of current residents. Larger units will boost our net operating income within limits, and the mixed AMI levels will reduce the vacancy risk, creating a balance between community needs and financial sustainability.
Looking at the rents and income, we have 42 units, all at or below 60% AMI. This keeps rents low, ranging from 13 to 70% below market rates. We were able to get a 70% discount off market rent with the help of rent vouchers for the 40% AMI units. This will really help people who have low income while also keeping the development feasible. Now going over the financing. Our development is being in a qualified census tract grants us a 30% boost on the low income housing tax credits received. Along with those credits, we have a tax exempt bonds totaling 25% of our eligible basis, a small permanent loan, and soft debt funding through various local sources. Finally, we deferred over 40% of our developer fee to be paid off with part of our cash flow after debt servicing. For additional funding, we plan to use the Affordable Housing Trust Housing Action Fund loan, which is available for affordable units in Franklin County. This loan has a low 4% interest rate, but must be paid off in 10 years. We plan to get rent subsidies from the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority project-based voucher program. These vouchers will not only help lower the cost of rent for families at the 40% AMI level, but will also significantly boost revenue, allowing us to cover our debt service and provide more value to the community. For soft debt, we qualified for 3 forgivable soft debt sources: the Home Investment Partnerships Program, the Franklin County Affordable Housing Magnet Fund, and the Federal Home Bank Loan of Cincinnati Affordable Housing Program. Our development qualifies for these grants based on location, the project being a new construction, our unit mix AMI levels, and our compliance with the Ohio Housing Finance Agency standards. The development budget showcases all our acquisition, building, financing, and developer costs, along with the additional costs required for the Dream Lab, Boomgate, and environmental review necessary for the Home Investment Partnership Program grant. Our total development cost ends up just under $22 million at a little above $500,000 per unit.
Our pro forma demonstrates strong financial stability and consistent revenue growth over 15 years, supported by affordable rents and a balanced unit mix. Stability occurs in year 2 with a debt service coverage ratio of 1.20, meeting lender requirements. While our cash flow after debt service is modest in the first 10 years, we believe this shows our commitment to affordability and community impact. Once the Housing Action Fund loan is paid off in year 10, our cash flow after debt service nearly triples, creating a surplus that can be used for reinvestment into the property and/or resident programs. This structure enables us to defer a substantial portion of our developer fee and gives us the ability to pay it off by year 15. We believe we are prioritizing long-term value for residents over short-term returns. And to tie this project to the community, we're going to look at the legacy of Pondexter Village, which was built in 1940 as one of the first public housing projects in the country. It was created for Black working class families in Bronzeville and stood for affordability, stability, and pride. That legacy is our foundation. With Bronzeville Dream Rises, we're not just building housing, we're continuing to build on the roots of the Near East neighborhood. Bronzeville Dream Rises is more than just a development. It's a promise to honor the past, meet today's needs, and invest in the future where families can thrive. By building affordable, community-tied housing, we're helping Bronzeville rise again. Together, we can turn the Bronzeville dream into reality. Thank you. And now we'd like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you. So we'll have now up to 10 minutes for questions from our judges.
So first of all, thank you for that fantastic presentation, very thorough and very professional. Can you tell us a little bit how you would secure the long-term collaboration for the literacy programs and the nutrition programs? And you explained how you would cover the initial cost, but how would you go about securing long-term participation in that Dream Lab?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So both of the partners, CLC and Local Matters, they're established nonprofit organizations, and they already operate throughout the community through donations, grants, and public support. So they are offering free programs across Central Ohio. So the Dream Lab, through hosting their classes, we pictured opening signups to the broader community and essentially further amplifying their visibility and impact. And we think this increased participation will help strengthen their case for continued philanthropic and government funding. So we're really committed to promoting their programs consistently within the building and throughout the neighborhood to ensure that they have the engagement and support needed really to maintain a steady, reliable schedule within the Dream Lab.
Thank you.
You just kind of expand up that. I know you kind of put a breakdown of all the expenses going into the Dream Lab. You know, when you're talking about the CLC and the other programs you have there, is there an intent for there to be some type of administrator that's gonna operate that space for you and you know, bring those services in and coordinate all of that, or is that something that you expect, you know, the service providers to do, or is that something that is expected within the existing, you know, property management staff that you have on site?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So our staffing approach is essentially designed to be very efficient and sustainable. So we see the computer bar and workstation area allowing 24/7 access for the residents. And it's largely supposed to be self-sufficient until the Columbus Literacy Council hosts their classes. So residents can use it daily to complete homework, job applications, and online courses. So this requires no on-site staff, and the routine upkeep and any repairs we would place under the property management budget, which we've supported and accounted for further with a 15% contingency just to cover any unexpected maintenance costs. The kitchen, however, we do understand requires supervised use. And because residents already have private cooking facilities in their unit, the shared kitchen will only really be used for the scheduled nutrition and cooking classes with Local Matters. So during those programs, our partner Local Matters will provide the trained volunteers and staff who will oversee the safety, food handling, and equipment use. And this is just really to ensure the proper supervision, cleanliness, and safe operational environment without placing any additional burden on the property management.
Appreciate that. Did you look at any comparable affordable LIHTC properties, within the area of your property, and how are those performing? And is your unit mix as far as your split of 2 and 3 bedrooms, is that consistent with the market, or do you feel like you found kind of a hole in the market there that you're trying to serve with lower capture rates or anything like that?
Yes, so we did take a look at comparable properties, many by the developer Woda. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they are surrounding the downtown area, some in the south, some in the east, and they do have comparable unit mixes in terms of AMI, and they do also support families. Uh, yeah, I mean, we do. We did take a look and they do support similar populations and they do have credible demand as many developments are still in the progress, including Elevate 340, which is nearby as well.
And
And
just
just
to
to
add
add
on
on
to
to
that
that
a
a
little,
little,
I
I
believe
believe
two
two
and
and
three
three
bedroom
bedroom
units
units
had
had
very
very
high
high
occupancy
occupancy
rates
rates
in
in
similar
similar
properties.
properties.
Um, how did you guys conclude your equity pricing of 95 cents in this transaction?
Yeah, I can jump on that. So we took our eligible basis, which we concluded was the hard cost and soft cost, and we took the contingencies out of those, and we only also included the construction loan origination fee and the inspection fees because those were directly tied to the construction of the building. And then we found from the eligibility basis that totaled around $16 million. We found we were in a qualified census tract, which granted us that 30% boost. That gave our qualified basis of around 20 million, almost $21 million. And then we took the credit rate of 4% for the LIHTC credits, and that got us an annual LIHTC credit of around $837,000. We took the total of 10 years, multiplied that out, and then multiplied that by the 95-cent price per credit on the credit, and we got that total LIHTC equity of around $7.96 million.
I think the question was aimed at trying to figure out what research you had done on the demand for credits and how you arrived at the price per credit that an investor would pay.
And Taylor
I
just mentioned
believe
provided too.
we use the standard that we found in the low income housing tax credits documents, along with what was outlined in the case files for the
Okay.
95 cents per credit.
So that was an assumption given to you.
Yes.
Um, on the 10-year loan that you guys have, is that fully amortizing?
Yes, it is over that 10-year period.
Do you know if was that the senior position or is that subordinate?
That would most likely be subordinate position in our soft debt.
Yeah.
Taking a step back and looking at development more broadly, I think you emphasized affordability, revitalization, no displacement, and you tried to tie your project to that initial public housing project. So, how do you evaluate your potential for success when you go to the community and try to get through the political and administrative process of getting approved to go ahead and develop the parcel?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we believe that through our community involvement and our community connections, we're in our financials, we're fairly confident that will be given grants and apply or grants and essentially be allowing for all of these grants to be attainable based on all of the things that we provide for the community. We think going forward that there shouldn't be an issue considering we meet all the needs both financially and on the community aspect. So based on our research, we don't think that there would be any local or government pushback on the development of this property.
You guys have done a great job of identifying, the soft sources, everything that's available on this transaction. I think it's a great presentation overall. Just curious, I didn't hear any of, any key risks or notable kind of items outlined. Well, if they're well mitigated, that's fine. But what do you guys just think are your major risks in this transaction that any investor should be aware of?
There's definitely risk involved with securing all the soft debt sources. Like you said, we do have a few of them, and they all have application processes you must go through. I guess one of the mitigations we were thinking of was there's supposed to be a tax-free bond package, I believe, for next year, which we didn't touch because the requirements were not quite clear to us. But we thought that could be one of our backup sources. And if some of the soft debt fell through, we recognize we would probably have to change our AMI mix a little bit to bring up revenue to make it still a feasible project. And of course, there's always risk with construction and materials and building a property.
Some other risks were obtaining that variance for multifamily use. As we mentioned before, the current site is now zoned R3. And a key risk is, of course, obtaining that variance for multifamily use. And we think that's mitigated through as Aiden mentioned before, our key community partners and the great location that allows for transit to schools, work centers, and also its location at key civic and cultural landmarks as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to White Oak Development. Great presentation. That's the end of our 10 minutes for Q&A. So you guys can go ahead and log off, and we will have the final results posted via a Canvas announcement at some point following 3 p.m.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we can change over to case closed development.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you see my screen well?
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. Great. Well, thank you so much for welcoming us today. Good afternoon. We're excited to introduce Monroe Commons, affordable homes rooted in community, located at 474 North Monroe Avenue on Columbus's Near East Side. Our project transforms an underutilized public school site into a thriving, sustainable residential community designed for the working families who keep Columbus strong. So, who are we? Our team represents a balance of business, finance, and engineering disciplines, allowing us to design Monroe Commons holistically. My name is Gabriella Gaston, and I'm studying environmental engineering.
My name is Freya Sineski, and I'm studying business management.
My name is Kelly Pham, and I'm studying finance and marketing.
And my name is Mia Markham, and I'm studying chemical engineering and history.
Together, we developed a plan that is financially feasible, sustainable, and community-focused. Getting into the flow of our presentation, we plan to start with Columbus's background and context of the Central Ohio housing crisis. Then, we plan to move into our proposed solution project, which is Monroe Commons, and then getting into how we are different than other affordable housing builds. Then we'll dive into our financial modeling and projected planning for the future. To better understand the legacy of this neighborhood, we look to the story of Will Haygood, a Columbus native and award-winning author who grew up in affordable housing on the Near East Side, the same community Monroe Commons now seeks to strengthen. Haygood's early life was shaped by displacement and urban renewal, as his childhood home and many others were taken down to make way for high-rise developments that fractured once thriving neighborhoods. Yet amid this instability, he found anchors in community and education, discovering the resilience that would carry him to success as a celebrated Washington Post journalist and author. So his story embodies the very impact that stable, high-quality, affordable housing can have, serving as the foundation for growth, opportunity, and generational mobility. As Haygood himself once reflected, this book is the one I had to go deep within myself to tell the story of who I am and how I got to where I am. Monroe Commons aims to honor that legacy by ensuring future generations on the Near East Side have the same opportunity to define their own stories of belonging and success.
Building on Gabby's point, Hagen's experience mirrors a challenge that continues today, a shortage of affordable housing across Ohio. Statewide, only 25 affordable rentals exist for every 100 extremely low-income renters. In Central Ohio, this gap is even wider. By 2032, the region faces a projected 110,000 unit deficit, leaving thousands of families without affordable options. Across the city, 8.4% of mortgage holders spend at least half their income on housing, and nearly 1 in 3 Columbus residents are considered low income, earning less than 200% of the federal poverty line. Low-income Ohioans are increasingly struggling to not only thrive, but to simply survive in the communities that once helped them grow. And behind these statistics are the people who keep this city running, the essential workers who form the trunk of Columbus's economy. 3 in 10 essential Ohioans hold essential jobs, from healthcare professionals and educators to public safety staff and logistic workers. Major employers like The Ohio State University, Ohio Health, and the Nationwide Children's Hospital rely on these workers every day, yet many can't afford to live nearby. The city also employs over 10,000 workers in police, fire, EMS, and public works, but housing costs are pushing them further from the neighborhoods they serve. And that's where Monroe Commons comes in, a project rooted in accessibility, sustainability, and community. Monroe Commons is designed to address this critical housing gap by creating 42 affordable homes for families earning 60% or less of the area median income. This 3-story, 54,500 square foot building follows passive house principles, focusing on airtight insulation, triple pane windows, and heat recovery ventilation systems that reduce energy usage by up to 90%. The result is housing that remains both affordable and comfortable over time, lowering utility costs while improving indoor air quality and resilience. Beyond affordability, Monroe Commons delivers triple bottom line value through educational value, social value, and economic value. Our mission here at Monroe Commons is to plant the seeds that strengthen community stability and support long-term growth.
To achieve the aforementioned mission, the design of Monroe Commons blends modern function with the artistic, cultural soul of the Near East Side. It's a 3-story multifamily structure featuring 42 units, and inside there's a large, flexible community room for meetings, community events, and after-school programs. Each residential unit will have a surface parking space and ample bicycle racks supporting multimodal transportation. The development design honors the neighborhood's deep heritage of hard-working families and immigrant communities, and the mural inside the community room aims to celebrate local artistry and tells the stories of resilience, connection, and pride, ensuring that Monroe Commons feels like a natural extension of the Near East Side's culture. Sustainability is at the heart of Monroe Commons design, not just for the environment, but to improve financial resilience and lower tenant utility burden. By following the passive house alignment, the project achieves 60 to 90% energy savings compared to standard construction. The air-type envelope, triple pane windows, and heat recovery ventilation system that we mentioned earlier dramatically reduces heating and cooling costs. This mirrors a very comparable property, Fairwood Commons, also located in Columbus, Ohio, that is an affordable 54-unit apartment. This was the first multifamily passive housing project in Ohio and was a major success. That project proved that this model works, and ours joins that growing movement, bringing high-performance, sustainable housing to families who need it the most. The design reduces the utility cost burden on our tenants, allowing them to spend more money on feeding and leading their families.
When we started diving into the social side of our design, we realized that the community room really became the living heart of Monroe Commons. It's a place where people can connect, learn, and feel like they're part of something bigger. We built this room around what we call the 3 branches of belonging. First, we have our after-school tutoring and homework support. This happens on weekdays and gives kids a safe and encouraging space to learn. Volunteers from the community and The Ohio State University can come in, help with homework, and be positive role models. Second, we're offering career readiness workshops. These would happen monthly and focus on career goals like resume writing, interview tips, and basic professional skills, all to help high school students feel confident stepping into the workforce. Third, we'll have our community mural project. This is a big tree mural that will grow over time as residents add their handprints. It's a simple but powerful way to show unity, history, and shared growth. This room becomes a place for gatherings and celebration. Whether it's potlucks, cultural nights, or family events, it gives neighborhoods a way to come together and actually build relationships. Overall, the community room isn't just a room, it's what roots Monroe Commons into the community it serves. It's where belonging really starts to take shape. Stemming our community room, Monroe Commons unit mix was carefully designed to serve working families. Out of 42 total units, we're offering 10 one-bedrooms, 22 bedrooms, and 12 three-bedrooms, with 6 ADA accessible rooms to ensure full inclusivity. Unit sizes range from 700 to 1,375 square feet, creating a mix of options that accommodate singles, couples, and families with children. All rents are set at 60% of the area's median income, with pricing between $1,110 and $1,510 per month, depending on unit size. This mix directly addresses Columbus's shortage of large family units while maintaining long-term affordability through energy efficient and reduced utility costs.
So now moving into the projected costs of developing Monroe Commons, our total estimated development cost for Monroe Commons is around $21 million, structured to maximize efficiency and long-term stability while also minimizing exposure to financial risk. As you can see here in the breakdown, construction accounts for nearly 78% of total costs, coming in at around $16 million, which covers labor, materials, and a built-in contingency allowance. The developer fee represents around 12%, reflecting compensation for management and delivery of the project. Soft costs include architecture, engineering, legal, permitting, insurance, and audits, coming in at a total of around 6%, ensuring we maintain professional and compliance standards across all stages. We've also allocated for land acquisition at just under 2%, financing at 1.8%, and reserves at 1.4%, which will cover around 6 months of operating expenses and debt service to help ensure immediate post-construction stability for investors and residents. This balanced approach prioritizes cost control, efficiency, and resilience, positioning Monroe Commons as both financially responsible and mission-driven.
That financial responsibility is founded on the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, or LIHTC. Monroe Commons qualifies under the new 25% rule and is fully LIHTC eligible.
We calculated a total eligible basis of $18 million, from which we derived a qualified basis of $236,000 with a 100% applicable fraction. This results in an annual credit amount of around $9,000. This is generated over a 10-year credit period, priced at 95 cents per credit, with 99.99% allocated to investors. We also benefit from a 1.3 times basis boost, which enhances the overall eligible basis and maximizes credit generation. This structure strengthens both investor confidence and long-term affordability compliance. Our capital stack blends federal, state, and local sources to ensure both feasibility and affordability. On the sources side, we have permanent loans, the LIHTC equity, construction loans, the Franklin County Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the Ohio Housing Trust Fund, and the FHLB Cincinnati Community Investment Program. Together, these total nearly $24 million in sources. On the uses side, it comes to a total of $21 million, with construction costs taking up the largest chunk of that. Despite the high cost of usage, our sources leave us with a gap of $3.57 million, which gives us a large margin to work with just in case there are any unforeseen expenses, rising construction costs, or perhaps even a government shutdown. This strong balance of funding not only keeps the project feasible, but also demonstrates confidence and alignment among partners at every level, local, state, and federal. So now looking forward, we wanted to demonstrate that long-term financial viability of Monroe Commons is possible. In our 15-year pro forma, we see steady conservative growth and long-term viability. We project rental income growth of around 2% annually, increasing from $678,000 in year 3 to $860,000 by year 15. A 7% vacancy rate is factored in, aligning with Ohio Housing Finance Agency standards, ensuring that our projections are remaining realistic and not simply optimistic. Ancillary income is projected to grow at 2% annually, as stated in the provided case documentation. These projections reflect a conservative approach, balancing achievable rental growth with sustained affordability and a realistic vacancy rate. In short, Monroe Commons' mission is to perform like the families it's designed to serve: steady, reliable, and built to last.
Even the best projects face uncertainties, and our team took a proactive approach to risk. Starting off with construction cost escalation, we've mitigated this by projecting pre-bid commitments and embedding a 5% contingency fund within our budget. Then, a competition for soft funding. We reduced dependency on any single grant source by creating a diversified gap financing strategy, blending the LIHTC equity, local trust funds, and state resources. Finally, market instability. We documented extensive unmet demand for affordable family-sized units, ensuring that Monroe Commons remains relevant and competitive even in shifting markets. Through each layer of design, financing, and planning, we've worked to weed out the unknown, reinforcing the project's long-term resilience for both investors and residents. Ultimately, Monroe Commons embodies the intersection of affordability and stability and community identity.
At the end of the day, our project addresses Columbus's severe housing deficit by adding much-needed family-sized units. It leverages sustainable design to reduce lifetime operating costs and environmental impact, and most importantly, it honors the cultural heritage of the Near East Side, offering a replicable model for community-driven redevelopment.
Here, we're reminded of Will Haygood, whose story began just blocks from our site. He once said his memoir was about who I am and how I got where I am. And that is the essence of Monroe Commons, creating the conditions where the next Will Haygood can grow up with stability, opportunity, and the confidence to tell their own story.
And in every sense, this project stays true to its vision: affordable homes, lasting opportunity, all rooted in community. And with that, the case is closed. Thank you. We're excited to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, and we'll now open it up for up to 10 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that. When you guys were looking at your soft funds that you're putting in the deal, did you look at if there's any requirements on the property, on the unit mix, anything else to obtain each of those sources of soft financing?
Yes, we ensured that the stipulations and requirements for each of the soft funding sources were met with our 60% AMI, and making sure that everything was meeting the requirements. Yes.
Similar question on the ADA units. I noticed those are also at 60% AMI, which would be a little bit atypical. Did you do any analysis on, the ability to achieve 60% rents on those ADA units? Is there any, rental subsidy or anything along with those?
So this past summer at my internship, I was at a job site. We were building a hotel and we had ADA accessible rooms in there. And there was no more cost for the ADA accessible rooms as far as the individual that was staying in the room. So we wanted to implement that in the apartment as well. So in our eyes, when we were doing our research, we found that it wasn't ethical to charge more for an ADA accessible room rather than a standard room.
Yeah, I actually meant more of a lower AMI mix on those units. But no, understood.
Yeah, for the purpose of this case, we kept everything consistent at that 60% AMI, just for ease of use within our Excel sheet. But yeah, so the reason we incorporated it was, as Freya said, was because we felt like it was a good way to make sure we were meeting all the needs of the community at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I found the energy efficiency that you wanted to build into the project. Very interesting. Can you talk about what research you did to figure out what cost you needed to include in your development budget, specifically not just construction, but also maybe the additional work required to manage the implementation of those energy efficiency components?
Yes, we researched into multiple different case studies on how the passive housing was implemented in different places. So one of the main resources that we used was the comparable property, the Fairwood Commons, because it is a very similar unit size. It is the exact same AMI mix, and it is also in the same area. So we pulled a lot of our research from there. We also looked into case studies from other places that implemented passive housing, such as places in New York and Boston. And although they are different, they were able to manage. They were able to successfully implement passive housing, and so we pulled information from there. And so there was about like a range of cost increase for certain things. So construction costs were about maybe like a 5 to 8% increase. So we kind of aimed at the middle to just keep things simple for like a 6% increase. There was about an average of 1 to 2% increase in soft costs. And so to be on the more conservative side and to make sure that we have all of our costs covered, we went with that 2% and so on and so forth. Just referencing a wide variety of examples to kind of implement into our own project.
Yeah, we also
Thanks.
compared the passive housing to other similar standards such as LEED certification, and also Energy Star, which are more commonly used. But in the
Yeah.
case of this affordable housing case, we saw that the long-term payoff for both residents keeping rent low and then also for investors getting their money back, passive housing made the most sense, especially being in Columbus, Ohio, which is a bit of a cooler climate. I myself am from Michigan, so I understand the snow here and there. And a big emphasis of passive housing is on insulation and keeping heat in and cool out. So that's why we decided to go with the passive housing framework.
And how did you factor the operational benefit of having an energy efficient building? What research did you do to figure out your overall utility cost and maintenance and all that other stuff?
Within the research that we did, we found that the construction costs up front may increase, but the utility and operational costs come down because it's the infrastructure itself lends itself into making the operation cost cheaper, is what I found in my research.
And what adjustments did you make to your operating budget based on that research?
For the operational cost, I found that it was about a 50% decrease. So in the Excel sheets, where it made sense, I would divide things by two. And then for like the increase in cost, I multiplied those to kind of reflect the changes in the construction costs.
Okay. How do you plan to get the support of social services agencies for the programs that you want to implement in the community room?
Yes, great question. We actually did a lot of research specifically into the Ohio area's volunteer process, specifically looking at targeting college students at the Ohio State University. And there are many specific engagement opportunities provided by the college, specifically the College Community Leadership Council, as well as other programs regarding that. There's also a semester of service class at the Ohio State University, which we were looking into target and potentially partnering with that professor and hoping to get our project and development on that list of partnerships that the students would go to every single week.
Following up on the Ohio State University, I myself am an ice hockey player, surprisingly, and I have a lot of teammates from my hometown that went to go play at the Ohio State, and they do a lot of service work in the area. They like to help out kids. They go to elementary schools. So just that outreach going into the community would really be such a great help for Monroe Commons. And I've even seen efforts of them bringing a body of kids to, a hockey game and having a whole section for them or families. And, it's such a great way to spend more time with the community around you. So that was something that I really wanted to talk about as well.
Right.
Any further questions? If not, we will say thank you to Team Case
Do we
Closed.
have time?
Oh, we do. We still have 2 more minutes. So if you still have questions, go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. This is like speed dating. Uh, So one last question. What can you go a little bit into the research that you did to determine the need for large units and how do you think that your unit mix is going to address that need?
Yes, so we saw that in our demographic research that there was an average unit household of around 2.1, 2.2, I believe. And so it made the most sense to kind of garner or make the mix more towards 2 and 3 bedrooms. And so we saw a lot of information and research that kind of we saw that there was a lack of 2 and 3 bedrooms. And so that was kind of why our income mix, or not income mix, sorry, our unit mix is more towards 2 and 3 bedroom.
Looking into the regional deficit stat here is something that kind of drove our proposal here. So the severe 110,000 unit deficit by 2032 is something that really stuck out to us. And so that's just the general unit deficit, but getting into, the essential worker and workers' families focus was something that we saw trending up going into the future.
And to just kind of build off of their points and put a nice bow on it, at the heart of Monroe Commons, we're kind of trying to get a large community and build that community off of what's already established in the historic Lower East Side. And so with that community comes lots of events, lots of families going. Even if you're not a typical member or you're living on the outskirts, this building is going to help bring together lots of different communities. And at the end of the day, that's what the 2 and 3 bedroom mix is going to do. It's going to create stronger family units, both inside the Lower East neighborhood, as well as inside Monroe Commons and the heart of the building itself.
Thank you.
Great. So we will now say thank you to Team Case Closed. So you guys can log off, and the final order of teams will be posted on Canvas at some point after 3 o'clock.
Thank
Great.
you all so much for this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wonderful. And we will next have Pinnacle Property Partners joining us in just a moment.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, judges. We are Team Pinnacle Property Partners, and welcome to our final presentation for the 2025 Corcoran Case Competition. We're happy to be here, so we're going to go ahead and start off by meeting the team.
Hi, my name is Annika, and I'm a senior economics student.
Hi, my name is Kira, and I'm a senior studying finance.
Hi, my name is Ted, and I'm studying finance and philosophy. I'm also a senior.
Hi, I'm Halen. I'm a math and finance major, also a senior.
And I'm Nathan. I'm also a senior, and I'm studying computer science. Okay, so here's a quick roadmap for where we're headed today. We're going to start with a little bit of background and provide some East Side market context. Then we're going to move into our site plan and the services that will bring this development to life. After that, we're going to talk through some community impact and the financial structure, and then we'll finish with some rent assumptions and our final pro forma. This all said, we like to use our time efficiently, so we're going to jump right into it. So our goal is straightforward: to provide affordable, supportive housing that allows seniors in Columbus to age in place and with dignity. As we studied the East Side neighborhood and the broader Columbus market, it became clear that seniors are one of the fastest growing and most cost-burden demographics. So with that said, two themes anchor our approach: community integration and impact. You'll see these themes reflected in our partnerships with local nonprofits and Ohio State University volunteer programs, our collaboration with organizations like the YMCA and Columbus Parks and Recreation, and our emphasis on programming that brings residents together regularly. We design shared spaces as true community hubs, aiming to connect our residents to one another and to the surrounding neighborhood. Seniors often feel overlooked, isolated, or disconnected from the communities that they helped build. And so our intention was to create an environment where residents feel valued and socially engaged, almost like the familiar support and camaraderie of a college dorm, but adapted thoughtfully for this stage of their lives.
All right, we are now going to shift gears and go through some background on the city of Columbus. So the city of Columbus is historically an industrial and transportation hub, and the founding of Ohio State University helped to support the city as an economic center. Urban Ohio consists of less than 2% of the state's total land area, but in 2022, it was home to 23% of Ohio's population. As of 2023, 12% of the Columbus population was 65 and older, and with the baby boomer generation continuing to age, demographers predict the senior population to peak between now and 2030. In the past couple of years, the Columbus poverty rate has been just under 25%, with roughly 14% of the senior population included in that statistic. As rents increase faster than incomes, urban renters are finding themselves severely cost burdened and at risk of eviction and homelessness. Under the HUD income guidelines for Columbus, at 60% of the area median income, a family size of 2 is bringing in less than $50,000 annually. Columbus has a high need for affordable housing, with over 25% of the urban population severely rent burdened. As of 2022, 27% of housing units were built before 1950, meaning that many of these units are out of date. Decades of disinvestment in these communities and their aging housing stock have further contributed to a decline in the quality of life for residents. Our development is in the ideal location for seniors because it is right outside of the downtown area with an adjacent park, walkable neighborhood of single-family homes, and access to 2 major highways.
So now moving on to sites and services, we're going to start with site and redevelopment. And as you can see, our site has a rectangular building with floors 2 to 4 set back from the first floor so that we can have a community garden and a balcony space that wraps around in the shape of an upside down L. Our site amenities include laundry facilities, vending machines, and a multi-use community event space. As we previously mentioned, this development will be in the historic East Side neighborhood. We want to be conscientious of the fact that we are developing in a historically African American neighborhood. And so the intention of our development is to provide housing for the current aging population so they're not forced out of their community. Moving on to residential services, it was important to us to accommodate our residents who don't drive with a weekly grocery shuttle. Our research found that shuttles in the area typically fall between 150 to 270 per hour or 309 to 599 per mile. So we're budgeting about $30,000 of our residential budget, which is $1,000 per unit per year for a once a week grocery shuttle. With the other $12,000 of the residential services money, we intend to allocate budget to various residential services. This could include memberships at Columbus's Parks and Recreation, which has a sports membership, an aquatic membership, etc. Residents could put on their own events for the building or for resident-specific clubs. For example, they could put on group dinners and movies, bingo nights, book clubs. The only limitation is their imagination and $12,000. Besides that, we want to establish a Green Thumb program for our residents by partnering with the OSU Garden Club and a Master Gardener program, so residents develop the skills to make use of, the community gardens that are on site. This would also better integrate them with the surrounding community. Here are a couple of images we gathered so you can better picture what we are envisioning for the development. You can see here we have our parking lot, we have the community gardens on the balcony, and we have a potential design of the building. Moving on to community impact and concerns. We're going to start with community amenities and economic impact. One reason we think this development is well suited for seniors is because of its easy access to community amenities. For example, we have the Ohio State East Hospital for health services nearby. There's multiple parks for green space, and the King's Arts Complex is only 10 minutes away. Not only will residents benefit from these community amenities, but the wider East Side community also will benefit from this development. This is due to local businesses having an expanded customer base. Furthermore, as the current housing stock is old and degraded, providing new high-quality housing stock will add economic value to the community. And moreover, as the previously lot was an abandoned school, this is a more economically efficient use of this land for the community. We also wanted to outline some developmental concerns. In order to ensure our project is successful, we've identified the major community concerns and developmental risks so we can work on minimizing them. For community concerns, we expect to potentially receive complaints from residents for disrupting community flow with construction, increased noise, and traffic. It's important to us that we work closely with community members to assuage any concerns rather than dismissing them. And this kind of connects to our developmental risks. Large enough community concerns may result in a NIMBY mentality that could jeopardize our development by requiring us through local channels to alter our plan. This could create delays in our schedule, and as everyone knows, time is money. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. We've also identified developmental risks related to business uncertainty. So we've recognized that fluctuating labor costs, construction costs, et cetera, could create some uncertainty in our plan. Furthermore, tariffs, cost overruns, and construction delays could all negatively impact this project. But as we said earlier, it's important that we identify these risks early so that on the project management side of things, we can work on risk mitigation.
Okay, so moving on to the financial portion of the development. Looking at our sources and uses, so this slide provides a high-level overview of like how our project uses the 36.7 million total and how it is used to fund and spend for our development. So on the uses side, we have construction loan payoff and accrued interest. This represents the short-term construction period financing and gets refinanced at completion. Our total development cost, which includes everything from land acquisition to soft costs, hard costs, and financing fees. And then first year operating deficit. So during lease up, we have our expenses and debt service outpacing our income. So we have our first year operating deficit covered. And then on the sources side, so we have a construction loan that transitions into a permanent loan, 4% LIHTC equity raised from tax credit investors, soft debt from the city's RHPP program, and tax-exempt bonds that meet the 25% for 4% credits. So a little bit about how we calculated our uses. So construction loan and payoff and accrued interest. So the construction loan itself is 15.45 million based on the project's hard costs. And then we added 1.98 million of accrued interest because we assumed an average of 65% of the loan is drawn during construction, which builds up interest as funds are distributed. Next, total development costs are about 19.31 million. This is broken down into 250,000 for acquisition, 15.45 million for hard costs, 815,000 for soft costs, and about 2.8 million for financing costs, developer fee, and other fees. Finally, we have a $84,000 first year operating deficit. Again, this reflects our lease up, and it's expected to take 8 months, so expenses and debt payments will temporarily exceed income before stabilization. So this deficit is covered in the total sources to ensure the project remains fully capitalized. Moving on to sources. So how we got our different numbers for sources. First, the construction loan. It's based on $270 per square foot of hard costs. This results in a construction loan size of about $15.45 million. Then a permanent loan, we structured this assuming a debt service coverage ratio of 1.15 and a debt constant of 7.66%. And based on this, our NOI gives us an allowable annual debt service of about $249,000. And using these metrics, we were able to back out a loan amount of about $3.25 million. And then moving on to soft debt. So it's from the City of Columbus RHPP. And so we modeled 65,000 per unit, which fits in within the city's limitations. So basically using that soft debt, funds can be no more than 50% of the total development costs. Funds can not exceed more than $200,000 per unit, and the developer fee paid up front cannot exceed 10% of the total development costs. So that yielded us $2.73 million in soft debt. LIHTC equity, so giving a qualified basis of 23.1 million based on being in a difficult develop area. This gave us an annual credit of about 925,000 over 10 years with 99.99% to investors and at 95 cents per credit. This produces 8.78 million in LIHTC equity. And then finally, tax-exempt bonds. This fills in the remaining gap and ensures compliance with the 25% test. So the total bond size is about 6.53 million, bringing all sources into balance with total uses.
So now on to our unit mix. and our rental income. So our unit mix is very simple with 42 two-bedroom units with an average of 1,050 square feet per unit, resulting in a total of 44,100 square feet of living space. According to HUD, the maximum allowable rent for two bedrooms at 60% AMI in our development area is $1,471. Then with our development specifications, we found our expected utility allowance to be approximately $191, bringing us to a maximum allowable rent of $1,280. The market rent is 11.42% higher than our maximum allowable rent. So we thought that this was a viable enough discount for our senior renters, which we used for our pro forma rent, which also supports the economics of our development. So now on to our pro forma. This summarizes the project's operating performance when stabilized, giving us a walkthrough of projected income, operating expenses, and yearly cash flow or balance. So with an 8-month absorption period, we have a positive NOI in year one, but an operating deficit of 84,000. However, we have a leased up total EGI of 602K, NOI of 286K, and positive cash flow of 37K in year two. These metrics all grow consistently throughout the 15-year holding period and reach 779K, 315K, and 66K respectively in year 15. We're also deferring $387,000 of the developer fee to ensure we remain compliant with the RHPP soft debt constraints as mentioned before. And that's being paid out in equal annual payments of $25,838 over the 15-year holding period. This maintains a positive leased up cash balance of about $11,500 in year two, and it obviously increases from there, reaching 40K in year 15.
Okay, so before we end, just have some closing thoughts. This development isn't just about adding units to the market. It's about creating a supportive and inclusive community for seniors who are too often overlooked and giving them the chance to age in place and with dignity. It also strengthens the East Side neighborhood by keeping longtime residents connected to the communities that they've shaped, while responding directly to Columbus's growing need for affordable senior housing. And importantly, we've shown that this vision is financially feasible and that it's a project that can be built, sustained, and lived in. So with that, we thank you for your time, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll now open it up to 10 minutes of questions from our judges.
Sure. Great presentation. First question for you guys. I know you talked quite a bit on, the seniors being kind of overlooked. Were all the market indicators also pointing you towards seniors, or was it really more the just trying to help them out and all the community amenities and stuff that were nearby, or was it actual capture rates and other aspects of comparable properties that also pointed you in the direction of the senior?
I think it was definitely a mix of both. I think when we were researching, we did notice, the entire country, like the aging population is definitely the greatest need. And that does not differ from Columbus as a city. And that was supported by different stats and different reports that Columbus as well as Ohio had produced. And then once we kind of settled on, okay, this is the right population to address, the community kind of supported that prognosis, and everything kind of just came together.
Appreciate that. You talk about a senior property, the camaraderie between the residents is one of the key components to those properties being successful. And you guys did talk about that. I love the idea of the shuttle. Can you just kind of walk through a bit more about, the community event space that you have and the greater plan there and kind of how you're planning those events and how you see that operating going forward?
Yeah, so the idea is that it will be a multi-use community space that will meet whatever the needs of the senior community is. So to a large extent, we want to leave that up to the community. We mentioned things like by and large that we think the community may want. For example, group dinners, group movie nights are things that a lot of people can kind of rally around. But there may be community members who have more specific interests, such as book clubs, such as gardening clubs, etc. And we want to give them the flexibility to be able to pursue these interests as a community. And that's why it was also really important to us that we allocate some money for those activities so they can kind of build that community space themselves.
Got it. So the residents have kind of a set budget of events they can plan and dictate as they like with that budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we talk a little bit about your unit mix? It's all 2 bedrooms. When you look at affordability, rents are based on income limits, so on unit size, so those units are going to be more costly than a 1 bedroom unit. So what was your thought process around defining that unit mix, especially in the light of your earlier statistics about uh, seniors with limited income and the poverty rates that you were showing?
Yeah, so I can start on the social side of things. So first, it was really important to us that we maximize the amount of affordable housing that we can provide to the community because of this unmet need in the wider Columbus area and specifically in the East Side neighborhood. Also, we wanted, to provide extra space for seniors in case they may need an extra bedroom for a number of reasons. Like, for example, they might need space for healthcare professionals. They might want space for family to visit. If they have grandkids, they can take them to the surrounding green space and playground. Like maybe they need that room for a hobby, etc. So it's a combination of wanting to, maximize the amount of people we can house, kind of like combating senior loneliness and also providing them the space that they need.
Yeah, and then also from a financial standpoint, just having a 2 bedroom room makes the development more financially feasible in terms of like the rents you can garner. And we thought that having 2 bedrooms, you can kind of share that burden of higher rent across 2 people or a family, which I think would be more in line with what seniors could basically support with the amount of income or whatever subsidies they have during retirement.
Did you do any research on income distribution in the senior population in Columbus to figure out what your capture rate would be? And will there be enough demand in your view for these units? I mean, yeah, and what I mean by demand, I'm sure everybody will love to live in your great project, but in terms of affordability, do you have sufficient data to feel comfortable that you will be able to fill the units?
Yes, so we kind of had mentioned it earlier on, but Columbus does have, excuse me, like 12% of of Columbus population is 65 and older, which is quite significant. And even as the aging population continues to grow, like that trend will increase. And then additionally, Columbus's poverty rate, a good chunk of that, roughly 15%, is part of the senior population. So there is a high need and there is demand. And so I believe that, and our entire team believes that, having this project, there will be sufficient demand to meet, and like adding that supply is going to be very easy to fill.
Yeah, and just on Armando's question really quick, did you guys look at comparable senior affordable properties in the area, that had a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms, and were the 2 bedroom units occupied as well as the 1 bedrooms?
So we had looked at comparable buildings in the area. Unfortunately, we could find very few comparable ones, just in terms of there weren't a lot of senior developments. Some of the larger projects were being shut down and going to be rebuilt as something different that was undefined.
And so our major takeaway from this was that there was an unmet need in this community that we could tap into.
I love the page on development concerns. It's always good, for prospective investors and lenders to understand what the risks are and have those clearly outlined. So I appreciate that. If you could just identify what you think the major concern of those are, I'd love to hear that from you guys. Which one do you think is the biggest risk?
Yeah, so there's always concern, especially with NIMBYism, that, if a project like this needs any zoning relief, that the community may rally against that through local channels. And so that could require us to either amend the project or it could also, require delays in our schedule. So that was honestly the largest developmental risk in terms of community concern that we found. There's also some on the financial side of things.
Yeah, so with the RHPP soft debt, we also need development area approval from the people who live in the area, so that further taps into our approval from the community.
And because of these concerns, it was just really important to us that we open communication channels with the community early on so we can kind of get ahead of these risks and mitigate them.
So we have time for up to one more question if we have one.
Go for it, Armando. You have one.
No, I don't. One of mine was answered because you asked the same question.
Okay.
So go for it if you have anything further.
But I guess my final question would be, as far as the OSU volunteers, the YMCA, the Columbia Parks and Rec stuff, are you planning on having any formal engagement with those folks that are long term, or is it kind of determine again what the residents think that they're going to want, and then going from there on that?
I think some of it's formal, some of it's more informal with like the YMCA and neighboring community amenities that can be more informal and up to community needs. However, with the gardening club at OSU, I think it would be very helpful for residents to establish that relationship ahead of time. So there's kind of like less transaction costs between, establishing that relationship with them.
Sure. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Team Pinnacle Property Partners. So you all can please log off, and the final order of teams will be posted on Canvas at some point after 3 o'clock.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have the final team to present, which will be Westgate Development.
Hi, I'm Tejas Gatehouse. I'm a philosophy major. My name is Corey Licht. I'm a senior finance major.
My name is Sean McFerrin. I'm a senior finance major.
I'm Sienna Liscano, a sophomore finance major.
And my name is Logan Coleman, and I'm a finance major.
The property is 100% affordable, 54,500 square feet, 42-unit development targeting the 60% AMI level. Here is our agenda.
Moving on to our market overview. For our market
analysis, we can't hear you.
The median age is 33.4 years old. Furthermore, the median household income is around $62,000. However, 18.4% of residents are under the federal poverty line. In terms of employment, the unemployment rate is 4.6%. Also, 40% of the homeless population is employed. The need for affordable housing is urgent. Evidence shows that 71% of low-income renters are severely cost-burdened. Furthermore, Ohio is short over 264,000 affordable rental homes in 2025, proving that there is a demand for affordable housing. More specifically, there is a need for transitional housing because of a large 7.4% increase in the homeless population. Additionally, the unaccompanied youth population has increased 31% in 2025, and this group is at risk for drug abuse, as they saw 131 deaths from acute drug intoxication.
Now I'd like to dive into prospective residents. So our prospective residents are young adults ages 18 to 24, as well as single parents who are in active recovery. They need a safe, affordable bridge between treatment and independent living. Our building provides a secure, staffed, young, appropriate environment with clear routines that support stability. With the right structure and on-site services, residents can transition faster and more confidently into long-term housing and employment.
Here is a map of the area. We highlighted the public transportation routes since many of our future tenants will likely depend on accessible transit for work and daily needs. We also included nearby job and rehabilitation facilities as they play a key role in providing employment opportunities and support systems for individuals rebuilding financial stability or transitioning into the workforce. As for the local map, we focused on highlighting features that would most impact residents' quality of life, including an in-home healthcare service for accessibility, nearby bus stops for transportation, and daycare for working families.
For our comparable properties, we chose the Buckeye Ranch, the Scouting House, and the Carroll Stewart Village. We would like to highlight the low vacancy rates and the lower AMIs all around 30%.
Now moving into our development plan. We'll be starting with the amenities. Within our community amenity space and support hub, there will be two key resources, a career services portal. We'll be partnering with Columbus Works, a local career services organization, to facilitate this resource. They'll have on-site counseling as well as career and resume services. And then furthermore, for our drug rehabilitation and health resources, we'll be partnering with another local organization known as SafePoint. SafePoint will do on-site lectures and seminars for the residents and also counsel them on drug rehabilitation. Furthermore, they have these one-stop health boxes, which will be including in our community amenity space. These include items such as Narcan, birth control, and other key health resources for residents of our community. Furthermore, we will have a computer lab with free internet access and printers so that we can help our residents get back into the workforce.
Moving in now to our floor plans. They're 1 and 2 bedrooms with over 1,000 square feet for each, leaving ample room for each resident. Also, the unit mix is derived from our comps and tailored to our transitional audience of 18 and 24-year-olds.
Next, we'd like to move into the community mural. Our mural of Amina Brendan Lynn Robinson is a great fit because she's deeply connected to the Columbus community. Her artwork is all about transforming struggle into something meaningful, which lines up perfectly with the idea of recovery. The way she built her work, Raganons, layering fabric, found objects, and memories, mirrors the slow, steady rebuilding that people go through in recovery. Showing her actively painting one of her pieces on the mural turns the building into a symbol of new beginnings, where each brushstroke feels like a fresh start and the canvas represents a safe space to grow. Her local roots honor the history of the neighborhood, and her message of resilience, hope, and starting over reflects exactly what residents in the transitional housing are working toward.
We chose Fairfield Homes to manage our property. Fairfield Homes has over 75 years of experience managing over 4,200 housing units across Ohio. Furthermore, they've managed similar sites such as the Pearl House, which is a 32-unit community that supports families recovering from addiction. These two key factors make us believe that Fairfield will be perfect to manage and help assist the residents of our transitional home.
Now moving on to our development timeline. On month 0, we plan to break ground on the property and begin construction on the 42 units, as well as the surface of the parking lot. Then once we head into month 20, this should be the end of our construction period. And with the end of construction period, we should start stabilizing and start leasing, and we should work towards our absorption period. Once then in month 26, once we head towards our absorption period, we will begin property stabilization. Then in year 4, we will use these metrics as our stabilization for key financial metrics. Then at the end of year 15, this will be the end of our compliance period for the building.
Finally, moving into our financials. Here's the development budget with total costs just over $20 million and with per unit costs just under $500,000, highlighting how much we're putting into having high quality housing for the affordable tenants. Next, our capital sources. Here we'd like to emphasize the soft debt and our emphasis on that as our key source. That'll help this project be more realistic and make sure that we can capitalize it effectively. And now for our capital uses of those sources, the hard costs, again, are extremely expensive, and the project is also lucrative from a developer's perspective with a healthy developer fee.
Now moving into our soft debt financing strategy, which has 4 key layers. The first of which is the Housing Development Assistance Program, which is facilitated by the Ohio Housing Financing Agency. This focuses on and targets communities with residents that have between a extremely low income, between a 30 and 60% AMI, and also transitional housing programs. This is a niche sector of affordable housing and something that needs to be developed further. We'll be requesting $2.4 million, and they typically reward between $2 and $3 million for properties between 40 and 60 units. The next source will be the Home and American Rescue Plan, which focuses on combating homelessness and furthermore supporting at-risk households. We'll be requesting $2.2 million, and they typically award between 1.5 and 3 million, but we believe that this program very, very linearly aligns with our transitional housing development, and we think we'd be able to get that. Next, we've been working with the City of Columbus's rental housing production and preservation program, which focuses on keeping the stock of affordable housing up in Columbus and keeping that growing. We'll be requesting $1.4 million, and they typically allocate between $1 and $2 million for LIHTC projects. Finally, our final source or final key source of soft debt will be from the Affordable Housing Trust. They focused on that last leg of capital needed for projects with an intentionally low NOI. And we will be requesting $1.6 million, and they usually allocate between $1 and $2 million.
Here you can see snapshots of the property's financials on an operating basis. The development has healthy operating cash flows to begin and a strong ability to service its debt through year 15, when the compliance period for the project ends and tax credits can be reapplied for. Additionally, that low operating cash flow towards the end of the property's life is supported by AHT, and that was why we have it as one of our targeted soft debt financings.
Getting into our risk analysis, our first risk is turnover. We are worried that our residents will have trouble transitioning to permanent housing. That is once again why we'll circle back to partnering with Fairfield Homes as our property manager, as they have a wide network of housing data to connect our residents to more permanent, affordable rental opportunities. Next is our construction timeline. If there are delays in our construction period, we have allocated a significant construction reserve to allow for these issues. Next is NIMBYism, which stands for Not in My Backyard. We're going to go further in depth in this in the next slide, but there is generally a negative stigma associated with affordable housing. That's why we'd like to mitigate this risk by being more transparent in our communication with the community and designing a building with aesthetics. Lastly, for soft debt financing, if we are not able to secure all $7.6 million in soft debt financing, we have a source surplus of $6.49 million that will serve as ample cushion so that our project can continue as planned.
For business litigants, in terms of affordability, $494,000 development cost per unit shows that this project will be high caliber and visually appealing.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Next, to highlight our NIMBYism mitigants, in terms of affordability, our $494,000 development cost per unit shows that this project will be high caliber and visually appealing. In terms of transitional mitigants, we aim to host open forums in the community to provide information about transitional housing. We will also provide the opportunity for citizens to join a community board and become more involved with the interview process and day-to-day decision makings. Furthermore, our three-quarter style housing targets individuals who have completed intensive inpatient and rehabilitating outpatient programs. Individuals will also be required to maintain sobriety in accordance with our zero tolerance drug policy.
Thank you for listening to our development. We hope to build a future for Columbus, Ohio.
Great. Thank you. We'll now open it up for up to 10 minutes of questions from our judges.
Really well done. Can you go back to the financials really quick?
Yes.
Just wanted to see. It looked like you said you had like $6 million in cushion with a full paid developer fee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So my first question was, you're looking at 18 to 24-year-olds in transitional housing. So the assumption is, people coming from homelessness, whether they had a substance abuse problem or anything else, and knowing that age group and the issues they have, 60% of AMI for a one-bedroom unit, in Columbus is like $42,000 a year. Are you concerned at all about not having any lower AMI units and the residents' ability to pay that rent, or is there any type of subsidy programs you have available to them to help bridge that gap? And
Yeah,
if my question is, why not do some lower AMI units and instead of having such a large surplus gap there?
100%. So really what we had in mind was because we're seeking the 4% LIHTC allocation, and it was in the case that we weren't going to seek the 9% LIHTC allocation, we thought 60% AMI units makes a lot of sense. In terms of further helping out the community, I think we did consider having some 30% AMI units. The reason we avoided it was because of our net operating income issues towards the end of the lifetime of the property. Still, we look to mitigate those through seeking soft debt financing sources specifically tailored to low NOI properties. Just because of the nature of the construction loan in the case, there were some like operating cash flow issues. And so like obviously below the line expenses, but some operating cash flow issues. And so we didn't want to like get deeper into those by having 30% AMI units. And additionally, we couldn't get the 9% LIHTC allocations, but that was essentially what we had in mind for our AMI targets.
Okay. Appreciate that. And I thought I saw a reference to a year four stabilization and there. I was just curious if you could what that was about because I thought later on you talked about stabilization in year two. So
Yeah,
sure.
just in terms of maintaining consistency here. So it's the stabilization is year two of the actual property from
The development, not year two. Okay, yeah, never mind.
Exactly. Since we didn't want to have the two like superfluous slides, so we wanted to make sure the construction slides were the same as the compliance period. But yeah, it's year four overall and year two of actual, once it's generating cash flow.
No, that's just me being slow. I'm sorry.
I think you did a good job presenting the site location and making the argument that it was an ideal location. But can you talk more about your justification for the need for these units? What led, it's a special population and I was just curious to see how you arrived at the idea of sponsoring a traditional housing project, transitional housing.
Yeah, so for transitional housing, one of the main concerns that we had was the discrepancy between wages and rent prices for units. So since a lot of people are cost burdened, we believe that transitional housing would be the next step between low income, like very affordable housing, and actually getting up on their feet, paying full rent on their own. So a part of our project is we're going to work with Fairfield Homes and using Fairfield Homes data and connections, we're going to leverage that and have them look for the lowest available properties, hopefully under market price. And we're going to hopefully connect graduating members of our three-quarter housing community, connect them with these apartments and homes and get them housing that they need. Because right now there is a supply constraint because of those costs or those discrepancies between housing costs and wages.
So with your 60% of AMI rents, it's your expectation that the tenant population will have some sort of rental assistant or rent voucher?
Yeah, so our goal was generally with the 60% AMI units was to target people who just need that extra bump to get on their feet. So the goal is not necessarily to like try to help out the most this is obviously kind of part of the unit mix, like not 30% AMI people, but try to fill the gap that exists right now between people who can't even afford that lowest market rent and people who are entirely homeless. So we're looking to help supply a little bit of housing for those people who can't quite make market rent and find them, give them some housing for, maybe a year or 2 years, get them on their feet so they can get into that low market rent housing as opposed to being homeless, potentially being in a shelter, help them get on their feet and avoid drug abuse issues.
Yeah, so these are people that are kind of already on their journey. They're already recovering. They're working. They're on that final step to a big boy or big girl job kind of a situation. This is their kick out the door kind of a thing.
Exactly, because the last thing we want is for them to not be able to find affordable housing and then end up, whatever it is, if it's a relapse, if it's losing their job because they don't have, a place to stay or a place to get ready in the morning or career services. We're trying to help those people make sure that they complete that last mile issue as opposed to having them fall back into the cycle that we saw is so common in Columbus.
Can you talk a bit more about the service providers and how your plans are you planning on formalizing any of those agreements with them, or is it going to be, kind of see as it goes, or how do you envision, outside the health boxes that you'll have there, with Columbus Works especially, what do you envision that being long term?
Yeah, on the hands of Columbus Works, we definitely like to sign more of a formal agreement with them, especially as their niche is providing those career services, and those would be like a financial exchange for career services. We'd like to provide those amenities for our tenants at no cost, but we'd have a formal contract with them. On the point of SafePoint, they're more of a nonprofit, and when we're providing a community or we're providing a space to help the members of the community that are afflicted by drug addiction, I feel like they would definitely have a lot of synergy with that cause. And we're providing a location for one of their SafePoint health boxes. And we're all following that path of helping get rid of drug abuse and help these people forward. So I think that there would definitely be a split where it would be more formal contract with Columbus Works and more of just a community engagement partnership with SafePoint, as our causes definitely align pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
On the on the operational feasibility, I mean, you have a special population here. You not only that, you have a certain age cohort. How closely did you work with your targeted property management agent to identify specific items that are unique to this kind of property, and how did you factor those into your operating budget to determine your long-term viability?
Yeah, with respect to how we, research things like our amenities, that was more thinking of exactly beginning with, our research on how there's a gap in this transitional housing, and then looking into what are the best amenities to help out long term, to help people get on their feet. That's how we arrived at things like partnerships with SafePoint and Columbus Works. With respect to long-term feasibility, that was exactly why we wanted to include the aspect of being able to get people into market rent units. I think one of the issues that would be the most common with these transitional, developments would be not getting that turnover that you really want to see. At the end of the day, you don't want people being in there for more than a year or two because the goal is to try to get them to transition. And so long-term viability wise, that's exactly why we had that partnership, to make sure that they're finding low market rent units so that we can get that turnover and have long-term feasibility within our development and accomplishing our goal of making sure people are getting on their feet.
So with that, the 10 minutes of questions has expired. So we'll have to say thank you to Westgate Development. So Westgate Development, you guys can go ahead and log off, and the results will be posted at some point after 3 o'clock on Canvas. And I will also ask everybody else who's in attendance, except for our judges, to log off now as well. Thank you for joining us. so
Thank you.
that the judges can use this space to discuss and deliberate.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.